Nobody could ever prepare you for what happens afterwards because your life changes overnight.
Hello and welcome to the My Defining Moments podcast. And it's episode 10. I can't believe I have made it to 10 episodes, so I'm thrilled that you're all enjoying it. And to celebrate this 10th episode, my guest is the athlete that made me become a sports fan. In the summer of 1992, I was round at my nan's house, as my parents were away, and we sat together watching this thing called the Olympic Games. Little 6-year-old me was fascinated by it all, and my nan told me to keep an eye on the women's 400 metre hurdles, as Great Britain had a gold medal chance. That gold medal chance was Sally Gunnell. I watched all of her rounds and the final where she went on to win the gold medal. A few fan letters followed, and I watched her career progress to become Olympic, World, European and Commonwealth champion and world record holder, all within 2 years. So, it's only fitting that Sally is my guest for this special 10th episode of My Defining Moments. Hi Sally, thank you so much for joining me on My Defining Moments podcast. How are you today?
I'm very well, yeah. We're starting to get a little bit back to normal, which is great, isn't it? I'm looking forward to sort of, I don't know, just the spontaneity of being able to think, right, I'm going to go out and have a cup of tea somewhere or whatever it may be, isn't it? So yeah, no, excited. We're getting there. I can see a little bit of light.
Exactly. And how have you coped, actually? Obviously, you're a very active person and you're very keen for kids to be active today. It must have been a bit of a struggle the last year or so.
Well, it's been full on. We've had all three of the boys, even though they're a bit older, staying at home and things like that. And we've been doing a renovation of the house. So we've been living in 2 rooms. So I don't think that's really helped. But do you know what? I think our exercise and being able to get out and have the gym where we are as sort of being a lifesaver and, and being able to get out with a friend and cycle and walk and things like that. And I think that's sort of kept us alive, really. So on some of those tough days, it was just to right, grab the dog, get out the door and go for a walk. And I think that's what's kept us going. And I'm sure lots of other people as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think everyone's appreciated their local parks a lot more this year.
Yeah, definitely. And, I'm very lucky that a lot of my work I've been doing on Zoom and around well-being and health, and that's sort of gone crazy. So yeah, very lucky for that as well.
Great. Well, one of the main reasons I wanted you on this podcast actually was because you were kind of the reason I became an athletics fan, actually. So when I was about 6 years old, I was watching Barcelona, and I remember my nan saying, "Oh, this is Sally. She's our golden girl. She's going to win the gold." And I was like, "Okay," and I was suddenly obsessed with the sport. And then I actually wrote you a letter when I was 6 years old.
Oh, I probably got it somewhere. I kept all my letters and all my little books and collection things. I've got a great big trunk upstairs full of it all. So it's probably up there somewhere.
And my mum has found your response somewhere in our attic somewhere back home. And you wrote kindly, "Dear Christopher, thank you for your letter. You write really well."
Oh.
And then you finished off by saying, "Be a good boy."
Oh, so, there you go.
A little 6-year-old me would have been thrilled to have received that message. So I think I've managed to be a good boy in the last 20 years.
Excellent.
For me, obviously, that did inspire me then to go down to my athletics club as well and get into sport. And I guess for you, obviously growing up in Chigwell, and I guess it was school and PE and sports days and things like that got you down to Essex Ladies to try the sport at the beginning of your journey.
Yeah, just a really good teacher at our school that was very sporty, and I used to do all the clubs, netball and rounders and running and just loved it. And I was good at gymnastics. That was my other thing I was quite good at. So a friend was going down to the athletics club as a 12-year-old, and I decided I'd go with her rather than go to the gymnastics club on my own. And it's weird because I often think, gosh, if I'd gone to gymnastics, I would never have made it. I would have loved it, but I don't think I'd be doing triple back somersaults and stuff. And it's just weird, isn't it, how things work out. And going down there, Essex Ladies, and I just loved the training. I loved the friends that I made and the trips at the weekend. And I think that's what sort of kept me in the sport when lots of my friends sort of gave up at sort of 15, 16. Then, I still loved the sort of weekends away, really, and the training and seeing how good you could get.
even though it is obviously an individual sport, you do mention obviously the social side of things is a key part of it for kids, I think. Do you feel that's still the case today?
Yeah, I think sometimes you have to remind yourselves why you're doing it, and I think that's really important, and I think that's what the clubs are all about, and the grassroots, and it's not about taking it too seriously, and it's about the fun times, the camaraderie, it's all those sorts of things really, and I think that's and I think that's really key. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that. Everybody thinks it's always about the winning or the results or something like that. But it is just about all, having fun and chatting and training and being part of a club and a group and a team.
Like most kids, you started off doing a bit of everything, and then you ended up falling into the heptathlon. You went to European Juniors in 1983 and weren't far off making the Olympics in 84. Was the heptathlon an event you actually enjoyed, doing the variety of everything?
It's funny, when I look back, I can't say I really enjoyed it. It was hard work. It was very painful at times. And I was good at some events, but I was really rubbish at others, like the high jump and the shot and javelin. So, I was amazed that I did so well at it, really. And I guess not getting and just missing out on that LA Olympics sort of forced me into thinking, when my sprint hurdle started, that maybe that's what I needed to be sort of concentrating on more and sort of diverted off. So, of course, I love doing the sprint hurdles after doing all those 7 events and things. And, the heptathlon was hard, but I actually think it's part of my development, and I think it was so key at the time. And I think because I was developing all parts of my body and learning new skills and the technical side of it, I think it was such an important part of my development growing up. And I think it's one of the things I always say to people, it's like, don't specialise too early. It's about trying lots of different sports. It's about trying different events as well. And I think that was, really key in not having injuries, later on in my life and stuff like that.
And now you said you then specialised in the 100 hurdles, and that that started well. Commonwealth champion in 1986 and semi-finals in 87 at the World Champs. Do you feel like you reached your potential in that event? Do you think that your best time of 12:82 was as good as you could have gotten, or had you stuck with it, do you reckon you could have got a little bit quicker?
I might have got a bit quicker, but I didn't have enough basic speed, and I think sometimes you have to be true and real to yourself, and I think I was probably did well because I was technically so good over the hurdles and I was strong. So I think that really helped my 100 hurdles, but I didn't have enough. When you look at the girls now that are running, 12.3s and 12.4s, their flat speeds are just unbelievable. And I just didn't have that. And that was really the reason why we moved up to 400 hurdles, because we realised we couldn't get any faster. I wasn't going to be the best in the world, but having that amount of speed I had, and the strength, which was always, the last part of the 100 hurdles was always where I came through. And technically from my heptathlon days, I was really good hurdler. That's where it was sort of like a natural sort of step to sort of, try the 400 hurdles, really.
Well, yeah, this is your first defining moment, is that switch up from the 100 hurdles to the 400 hurdles. And, they say the 400 hurdles is an event that you don't find, it finds you.
Yeah.
Was that the case in your case?
I think it was, really. I think it is. It's a killer of an event, because if you get it wrong, it bloody hurts. And I think it's... and there's lots of people that come for either 400 or you come from 8 or all those sorts of things. You never sort of really start with doing the event. You sort of, found yourself there, really. It was a big decision because, obviously the 100 hurdles was lovely, and I was Commonwealth champion and I was British champion, and it was very comfortable and nice to do. And and I remember when Bruce, my coach, sort of suggested it, I was a bit like, really? Why would I want to do that? It was sort of that scenario. And he just said at the end of one season, just turn up at this race, just run at them, don't do any training for it. And I think I broke 60 seconds or something like that. And he just said, well, you're half decent at it. And I was like, well, yeah, it wasn't too bad. We've got lots to improve on. There's lots of stuttering. And then we sort of did a winter of training in both, so I sort of kept my options open. And then I think within about the third race or something ridiculous, I broke the British record, and I could see the progression, and it was like, wow, this was amazing. And it sort of just propelled me, significantly onto that next level of the athletics world, and was such the right decision. And so really key.
Yeah, and then obviously at the Seoul Olympics in '88 you did do the double, and you did both the 100 and the 4 hurdles, which I was looking at the schedule for that. It was pretty intense to do all of that, and then I guess your decision was justified with your 5th place in the 4 hurdles, and whereas you missed the final in the 1. So was that your decision kind of confirmed there?
I think that was it. I think it was all about, I did qualify in both, and I could do it. Let's have a go and see what happens. And I guess I was still 22 years old, so I was still quite young. So I think it was, and because of the success that I had in the 400 hurdles, it was the next sort of push. But, I think it was great to keep the 100 hurdles going, because it kept my leg speed, it kept my technique. And often, even when, I sort of specialising much more in the 400 hurdles, we'd still go back and do the sprint hurdles drills, and we'd still do the odd 100 hurdles, because I loved it, and it was nice to do, an event that you loved and wasn't always painful. Very significant part. But the training sort of adjusted then into that, into much more sort of, relevant sort of training that we needed then, and that was key.
And how was that first Olympics for you to actually be an Olympian at 22? That must have been pretty special.
It was. I mean, I remember it blowing my mind away, because, I'd watched it on television, and it was, when you rock up there and you just cannot believe the size and the magnitude of the whole event, and it just doesn't come across on the telly. And it was really quite scary. It was like, this is big time, and thousands of people in the Olympic Village, and it was, really exciting, quite daunting, quite scary, but I just learned so much, so much, and I just took it all in, and I just revelled in it, and, I met some great people, obviously Linford and Colin and people like that, were doing well at that sort of time, and are sort of, ready for the next time, and it was just lovely to be on that, to really get to see them doing well, and to help you on that next part of that journey.
And you mentioned Linford and Colin there. Did it feel like the beginning of something special for the British team at that time?
I don't know. I think there was, it was... You can see how easy it is to fail at something like that, because of the magnitude and the amount of people and the quality and people that raising their game and all those sorts of things. So you can see it going one way, and I think it's just really interesting, the people that sort of rise to the occasion and have prepared themselves and can deal with that pressure and expectation, and go on to that next stage. And I think it was really, I think there was quite a few of us that it was sort of, we were around, Linford was a little bit older than us, but just in our careers of, and Chris and Roger and whatever, those Olympics were just so key in giving us that confidence and rising above it to that next sort of level and stage that we were all at.
And then you did the double again at the Commonwealth Games in 1990, you got a silver in the 1 hurdles, but then you beat the Olympic champion over the 4 hurdles. And again, that must have been a moment where you're thinking, okay, by the time Barcelona comes around, I should be up there fighting for the gold.
They were all, major stepping stones, all about confidence. I mean, that was a tricky Commonwealth Games because it was in January, so it was sort of in the middle of our winter. So I didn't really come off the winter training, and I just sort of went down there as a bit of, not a bit of fun, but just to see how I got on, really. It wasn't the end all, and I think I sort of surprised myself because it wasn't about speed work. We hadn't really raced or prepared like I would in the summer. So it was, and it was, it was a fun game. I enjoyed it almost, it was the first sort of, real massive trip away, and being away for quite a while. And it was a good trip. I really enjoyed it and had fun, and it was just lovely to be part of that sort of team down there, and and to get some great results coming off the back of it. So again, a sort of little stepping stone, and lesson to learn, and lots to take with me on that next sort of stage.
And then I guess there was probably another lesson learned at the World Championships in 91 the following year, when you got silver, British record, but you were 500ths off the gold. And did that kind of give you that extra little bit of hunger going into winter training that year? Yeah,
I mean, that whole sort of 4 years from the last Olympics was, becoming much more professional about myself, about what I was eating and all those sorts of things, and looking at all those really significant things. And I think when that happened in 91 and I got the silver, I realised that I had what it took. It was probably almost the first time that I had what it took to stand on the top, and what was letting me down was, the self-belief. It wasn't the technique or the speed or the coaching or any of that. It was just that self-belief, really. And I'm always, I would think I was always one of these people that was always looking at other people and how good they look and that sort of thing. And I just had to learn that it was about controlling what you're capable of doing and the controllables, and not worrying about other things. And I think that was that defining moment from those games, and and how mentally it is to get yourself in the right place, really, and what I put in place and the people that helped me to do that in that last year. And and I sometimes look back, I think if I had won that, would I have won the following year? I don't know, but I just, in all those races, it was about, it wasn't like, I was disappointed in that second. It was, gosh, I wish I hadn't, I've thrown away a chance, and what am I going to do about it? So it was always a learning thing, and how can I improve? And I think that was very key to my coach. He was always asking for feedback. He was always making me point out how I can improve. He was never telling me. It was always me that would have to think on my feet and to do that. And I think that's a very good skill in itself from a coach.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess that was probably the last piece of the jigsaw puzzle going into 92, was getting that belief and confidence. And how did you approach those Olympics in 92? What was your mentality like going into Barcelona?
Yeah, I was in good shape. I wasn't winning all the races beforehand, but I had always got myself in that I was a championship runner, and I performed. I couldn't perform week in, week out, but I performed when it mattered. And I think having that mindset, I had some great training leading into it, and it was it was always a bit of not all those early races went to plan and all those sorts of things, but I kept very positive throughout it, and I knew it was always about what was going to happen at the beginning of August and not what was happening in May, June, July almost. And that's what I just had to keep focusing on, and that's that whole piece about the controllables and yourself, really.
But then it must have been different going into this Olympics as a gold medal favourite for Great Britain, and we didn't have many gold medal favourites back then. It was a lot of pressure would have been on you. So did you feel that pressure from the media and the press back home?
Oh yeah, very much. You knew that this was your chance, and if I didn't do it now, I'd probably never get that again. But I also knew that I was in the best shape and the best opportunity, and that I had to take it. So yeah, it was very nerve-wracking, and it was a bit like, let's just get this thing on, let's just do it. But I also felt quite confident in my ability to do it, so I had to keep that going in my mind, which was really important. Yeah, I had to rationalise it sometimes, because I think if you think about the magnitude of it, I think it was, on the actual race day, it was about saying, look, you can only ever do your best, and your family and your friends are still going to love you, and they're still going to be there, and sometimes you have to do that, and not actually think about the magnitude of what it is you're trying to do.
Yeah, well, this is your second defining moment, is your winning the gold at the Barcelona Olympics, obviously becoming Olympic champion. Was it the perfect race from your point of view?
It wasn't far off. I did go on to run faster, but technically wise, it went as smooth as I wanted. It is what I'd planned. It was the first time I'd ever done that stride pattern, and it worked. And that was the difference of winning and coming second almost. And so in that respect, yeah, it was the perfect race, because I won and I hit the stride pattern that I needed to. So yeah, I was never one of these runners that wanted to run the perfect race or to break world records or anything like that. It was about doing what I deserved and was capable of, and that was about winning.
And obviously, when you crossed the line and you're Olympic champion, is it everything you expected it to be?
do you know what? I hadn't prepared myself for life afterwards. I'd only ever, mentally prepared myself and seen myself crossing the line. And I had nobody could ever prepare you for what happens afterwards, because your life changes overnight. And it's, from everybody wanting to know everything about you to, I don't know, being invited to so many things. And, here I was the same person, but lots of opportunities coming my way. And I think it was about having a great team around me and family and friends that kept my feet on the ground and not change and, put things into perspective. And, and I think a lot of it was realising that, once I got back on the track, that you're only ever as good as your last race. And you have to remember that. And you still have to put the hard work in. And that's what that team of people around me had, kept saying to me and kept putting in. And I think, the following year was all about, fear of failure, really, and not being able to live up to being that Olympic champion. And I think that's what sort of spurred me on. Very different to that Olympic year of, of being one of the favourites and maybe having a chance of winning, and to all of a sudden everybody expecting you to win. So, the very different mindset that I needed.
But a lot of people do struggle kind of from the Olympic hangover, as it were, because the next season it kind of bleeds into that. You've got press, you've got media, you've got award ceremonies, and then you're announced as Olympic champion for every single race you're doing. So you do have that target on your back. And how did you approach 1993 then, that season?
Yeah, I had to be very disciplined. I had to say no a lot. I had to take myself off and away. I think I trained because I was scared of losing. And I remember coming out in the beginning of the year, not really knowing what sort of shape I was in. I was, I think I trained hard. John and I, my husband, we went a lot away on training trips and we think we did okay, but it was hard to sort of measure really. And it wasn't until I started coming out and racing and realised that I was in good shape, and I was excited about that following year, I think, because you knew it was in there and it was in the bank, and I was a bit like, wow, come on, let's bring this on. And I was sort of enjoying it a bit more, I think, than anything. And I think, going to those world championships and, I was excited to think, I'm not quite sure what I can do here, and this is a great place to be.
Yeah, this is your third defining moment, is those World Championships in '93 in Stuttgart. Obviously, you won the world title. Very close race. It was very dramatic. You got across the line first, world record, but you weren't sure you'd won. So just talk us through your emotions of that post-race.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I was in great shape, but I've got a cold literally the week before. And I'd always been one of these people that I tick all the boxes and this is what you do. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm Olympic champion. Do I race? I've got a lot to lose and all those sorts of things. So I think that race was a massive defining point in my whole life, really, because I mentally got myself to that start line. I mentally, raced that race, and I was, got a lot of negative thoughts in my head. I wasn't feeling great. I didn't feel brilliant and all those sorts of things. And I just had to really work at it mentally. And I think when Sandra pushed me to that time to win, and we both broke the world record, and it was so close. It was such an exciting race afterwards, but I didn't really know whether I'd done it. I'd got myself into this sort of mental state where I was just running on autopilot, and I didn't really know whether she'd won, I'd won, and it was all a really strange experience. And I remember crossing the line and almost in shock that I'd won it, considering how I'd been really fighting this and nearly walked away in the last few days, to breaking the world record. Did I really do that in the state that I'd been in, and all those sorts of things? And I think it just taught me that the mind is everything, and the power of the mind, and how easy we can talk ourselves into things and out of things very, very easily. And, and it's helped me in lockdown, and it's helped me in the probably the last 20 years of forming another sort of, life for myself. And, and that actual one day was a real defining moment.
Yeah, do you think that the fact you had the cold and you had those other distractions, was that actually in a way a good thing because it helped you focus on, the race and just trying to get through the race when it actually was a very close race, and that's why you ended up running so quickly because you weren't actually set on times and things like that and actually trying to win the gold?
Yeah, I mean, I never thought I'd broken the world record, and it was just about the winning. I was focusing on the winning, and obviously that's what it took to win. And yeah, I mean, I don't think I'd like to. I don't think without the cold, I don't think I would have run any different. The cold was a distraction, but it wasn't a good distraction. And I'd quite like to have gone in there without that worry because, you didn't want to let your other opponents know what you were doing. It was all those sorts of scenarios, really. So, yeah, it was quite a challenging time.
And would you say that Sandra was your kind of biggest and closest rival throughout your career?
Yeah, massive. We had it was always her and I really that pushed each other, and I think she was often the reason why you'd get out of bed in the morning when it was raining or train on Christmas Day. It was that sort of thing. So but how key that rivalry was. We pushed each other on, and I think it's healthy to have that rivalry, and I think I would have struggled if I didn't have people around me. And, she pushed me to that world record, and we pushed each other, to train hard in those dark, horrible days almost.
Also at Stuttgart, like in Barcelona, you got a medal in the 4x4 relay as well. I just want to ask you about relay running. Did you win? Because you're still one of the fastest ever relay runners Britain's had. You've got, I think 49.4 was your quickest split. Did you enjoy the relay? Was it just a fun kind of thing at the end of a week?
Yeah, I loved the relay because all of a sudden you can look up and you can take the crowd in, you can see everybody, and yeah, it was nice to go into a race. Oh my God, I'm going to really enjoy this, and I used to just revel in the last leg and being in charge, and and I wanted to do it for the girls and I wanted to do it for the team, and it just was a great way of wrapping up the end of the week really. And it's so nice when it come off the back of doing well. It's just you're just so much more relaxed really, and absolutely loved them.
And we do have a great history of 4 hurdlers who are great relay runners. What is it about the event, do you think, that kind of lends itself well to being in the relay?
I think with the relay, I mean, I think you're very naturally strong with the 400 hurdles because you sort of train a little bit like an 800, 400. So you're naturally strong. So you're good at the rounds. You know that you might have done your individual event, but you can cope with, a couple of rounds of the relay as well. So you're not worrying about being tired and all those sorts of things. And I think, technically, we're such technical people that we like the braking, we like, all the baton changing. It doesn't faze us whatsoever. It's and we like that almost because it distracts us. So we sort of do the 400 hurdles because you're not thinking about, am I tired, all these things. You're thinking about the actual hurdle during the race. And I think that's the similar sort of thing with the relay. You're actually thinking about positioning and getting in the right position and all those sorts of things, which I like.
And then going into 1994, obviously you had, Olympic champion, world record holder. You just needed the 2 more, the Europeans and the Commonwealth, to kind of complete the set and hold all 5 at the same time with the world record. Was that kind of your goal going into 1994? Yeah,
I mean, that was sort of what motivated me and got me through, from being an Olympic and a world. I was like, right, I need something else to keep me going. And that was, that was the goal. That was why I trained that winter, knowing that there was a Commonwealth and a European and a chance to hold all 4 medals. And nobody else had really done that, or not many people had done that. So it was like, that was part of that, and then that world record. So, yeah, that was really nice. And I really enjoyed that year. I really enjoyed the Europeans because, it's much more relaxed, and the Commonwealth because you're sort of I know I still had to win, but I was quite a lot ahead of people almost, The 400 hurdles was really dominated by the Americans in those days, and obviously they were out of the picture, so I could sort of go along and enjoy it. And and with the Commonwealth Games in Vancouver, I actually sort of went out and did a bit of sightseeing and and still team captain and all those sorts of things, so it was good.
Yeah, did you enjoy being team captain at these kind of big events?
Yeah, it didn't faze me. I think I was you can only ever lead by example. It's not like you've got to you can't go around and pick everybody up or whatever else. So I just looked at it as being very much a lead by example sort of person, and get in there and do that. And I think that was, that was so right, really. So yeah, that was good.
And you mentioned the travel there as well. Did you ever get to travel? I mean, obviously you travel in the world all the time, but do you ever actually get to see the places, or is it just hotels and training centres?
Yeah, it was more or less a lot of hotels, a lot of training centres, airports, and yeah, I think that's why I enjoyed Vancouver really, because it was, actually being able to, spend a bit of time and, go and see the orca whales and bits and pieces. So, and that's often very, very rare. So yeah, I've enjoyed sort of going back to a few of these places afterwards and seeing it in a very different light.
Sports personality, you finished in the top three times but never actually got to win it. Do you feel like at that time women's sport was a little bit behind the men's side of things a little bit?
Yeah, I think we were, yeah. I mean, there wasn't that many. I was the only woman that won in Barcelona, and I think we were very much, it was, tennis players, there was always a massive gap between pay, and athletics, there's always a big gap between, what Linford might have got and what I would have got. So I'd like to think that, it was, a defining few years of, trying to close that gap and the people after me of, the likes of Paula Radcliffe and Kelly and people like that and Jess were able to then close that gap to being as equal as we could really. So, yeah, I mean, I think I felt very much on my own in a woman in sport, and not just in my event, but in lots of different events as well, really. There wasn't that many of us around. And, and even though I sort of got the glory, you were always fighting and pushing against the guys and trying to get that recognition and the sponsorship and stuff like that. So hopefully I closed a bit of the gap over those years.
Yeah, and obviously holding the Olympic, World, Commonwealth and European titles, do you think that had that happened now it would have been as noticed as much, because there's almost so many female sports stars around now? Do you feel like you'd have shone a little bit less now than you would have done back in the 90s?
Yeah, maybe, because I was the only woman, maybe, but then maybe, there's much more people are talking about women and equal terms and stuff, so maybe I always felt that I would come second in the silver in the world and wouldn't get hardly any recognition to one of the guys that might have got second, John Regis or whoever, and I always used to say to myself, right, the only way you're going to do this is to actually win, to get that recognition. So if I'd ended up not winning and getting second, third, I would probably not even be sitting here chatting to you today. That is where it was really affected. So I think it was, you had to be at the best, but it pushed me on as well to do that. So, yeah, who knows whether, I think I did get the recognition because I was the only woman at the time, but I think also now, I think there is much more sponsorship around for women and recognition and support and telly coverage and things like that, and magazines and papers and media and things like that generally, which is much more highlighted.
Yeah, like you said, being the only woman to hold the 4 titles and the world record. I think only Jonathan Edwards has actually done it since, to hold all 5 at the same time. So you're kind of at the peak of your powers then in going into 95, but then 95 didn't quite happen, injuries, and you saw your world record being broken. Was that a tough year to be on the sidelines? Yeah,
it was a really hard year. I think, with the injury, and took a long time to find what it was, and then the operation, and then the struggles to sort of get back and watching everybody else and the event moving on was tough. But I think, looking back at it now and my race in sort of 96 in Atlanta, I think I'd lost the hunger a bit. I think I felt quite lucky and achieved what I'd had done, and I found it, mentally tough to get over the injury and to stay really right, I want another gold medal. I want, to keep that going again. And I think, you have to have that hunger, and you've got to want to have it, in place and, feed you every day, really. And I think that was the piece that was sort of missing as well. So, yeah, it was a tough couple of years. And also, I think once you start thinking about, is this it? Am I ready to do something else? And, we probably had those thoughts in our mind for a few years until we made that decision. But once those thoughts are in there, it's that even makes that, fighting talk difficult as well.
Yeah, well, your fourth defining moment is the 96 Olympics in Atlanta. You're obviously defending champion. You made it through the first round and then got to the semi-finals, but you pulled up injured and then was famously taken off the track. What were your emotions like on that day when you were being taken off that track?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, I was looking at the low point. It wasn't how I wanted it to go, especially being, reigning Olympic champion and another injury. Do you know what I mean? And then, I think that was probably the race that started, to really think about retirement and what it all meant. And do I still want to do this and that things? But I didn't want to finish on that note. That was my problem. I thought it was such a horrible way to retire and move on. And that's why I sort of did another year and then got another injury in 97 before I announced that retirement. And I think that was part of my body saying it had enough, and just part of me that I'd had enough of putting myself on the line, and and that pressure and expectation and wanting something else in life, really.
Yeah, and just going into Atlanta, what were your realistic expectations going into that? Did you really think you could, defend your title, or were you just hoping to make the final? Yeah,
I mean, it had been an up and down year training-wise, but we were getting back into reasonable sort of shape. We were having to really nurse the Achilles on, because I had an Achilles operation, so it was really about, nursing that on and, and doing the training. And we were getting back into quite, reasonable shape, so I wasn't a million miles away. And, who knows, it could have gone either way, really. But it was just, it was, I think what was happening is I was then favouring the other Achilles and all sorts of different things. So, yeah.
So, I mean, well, had you been not got injured during Atlanta, what do you think you realistically could have done in that event?
Oh, it's difficult to know, isn't it? I mean, I was in half decent shape. I'd like to think that maybe I could have got a medal in it. So I mean, that's what I look at who won and what they were running, and they weren't running anything really fast. But I had no real sort of sightings leading into it in races or whatever else. But I was, as I said, I always used to get myself ready for championships, and I felt quite good in the heat and the first round and stuff. So and it was sort of feeling like it was sort of coming back. So maybe I could have got a medal. Whether it would have been gold or not, I'm not sure.
And then I guess kind of similar thing in 97, you carried on, went to the World Champs in, again, pretty decent shape. It looked like it was all coming together again, and then made it through the heats, but then didn't start your semi-final. So what was the story of that season?
Yeah, that was a calf strain. So I came off the first round and pulled a muscle in my calf, and I couldn't even put my foot down or warm up or whatever else. So I knew I couldn't even get round that race. And I think because it wasn't even anything to do with my Achilles, it was to do with the calf, it was a fresh injury. It was just like, I've had enough. And called the sort of, the press conference and announced it there and then, really. And felt a sort of like a sense of relief, I think, more than anything, that I'd actually made that decision and felt it was completely the right decision. I was excited almost. And, it wasn't regrets, it wasn't sad, it was like, it was just relief that I didn't have to try and keep proving myself. And that's what I think I felt. I wasn't doing this for me, I was doing it for others to keep going almost. And it wasn't done because I had that, doing it for myself and that passion or anything like that. And I think once you're always doing it for others, it's not quite the same.
Yeah, so this is your fifth to final moment, is your retirement announcement. Obviously you said it came to the decision was quite easy in the end of it, but was the response you got quite mixed, or was it quite, people were just like, thank you for all you've done and goodbye, as it were?
No, I think it was a really nice finish. I think everybody was like, really understand. I think sort of probably my husband and the team around me were the ones that were a bit in shock, because I think they were a bit like, oh my God, what now? And I hadn't really sort of told them that I was retiring, and that was it. So I think that was a bit of a shock. But it was like, new things started happening. I'd already started putting things in place and what I wanted to do with my life. And it was sort of quite a natural sort of step over. And I was quite excited about it. I mean, I know lots of people really struggle on that day, but I think, I wanted to have a family, and I fell pregnant almost. I had some, working for the BBC, so I was still back in and still enjoying the sport. And I had, we had so many opportunities thrown at us from gyms and all sorts of things. So it was an exciting sort of time, really. And I was just so ready. I was just so ready to do other things. And, waking up and not having to, train like on that day. I could do whatever I wanted, and I think that's what really excited me, and learn new things. I learned tennis straight away and stuff like that, really.
Was there ever a moment in the years afterwards where you did kind of miss it and think, actually, did I retire too soon? Or was it that was
never. I mean, I didn't do anything. I couldn't even do anything competitive for about 2 or 3 years. I hated it. Didn't want to be put up against something, even if it was tiddlywinks or, you know what I mean? It was just, I just couldn't do it. I didn't want anything to do with that. No, I mean, sometimes I thought about those last couple of years. Should I have done 800s, changed events? By that point, maybe that would have refreshed stuff and taken the pressure off the hurdling, because I had achieved everything I had. Maybe that was one thing I could have done and done another couple of years. But no, I think I've had no regrets, really, because there has to come an end at some point. And I think, doing it at that point where there were so many opportunities and there was so much great stuff for me to do away from the sport, I think that was really key. And I really understand how people carry on in their running as much as they like, because they're probably, there's not the big offers afterwards. And I think that's, because there are so many champions and people from the sport, and I think, they lose their identity. And I think I'm sort of glad I didn't wait too long, because I could easily have had that, really. And I sort of took up a lot of these other opportunities that I had, really.
Yeah, a lot of people do struggle with that retirement decision, but like you said, because you kind of checked every single box on your career, I guess it was easier for you, and like you said, you were able to make the most of it, whereas a lot of people nowadays don't. Do you feel like that's something that sport as a whole needs to get better at, is like supporting people once they have retired? Because a lot of people do think, well, what do I do now?
Yeah, I mean, we dedicate so much, don't we? And we sacrifice our, probably education at times, and, early sort of training. And it is a bit like, what do we do now? And, and if you leave the sport and you haven't achieved what you wanted to achieve, that's really hard, because, you might not be able to go and do the media and the things that you can do if you've been an Olympic champion or whatever, and those opportunities, and you've almost got to start from scratch, and you've got to think, what are those skills? And, you do miss the highs, you miss the training group, you miss the camaraderie and the fun times and the structured days. That's the piece that people miss. And I think that's what my husband missed, being, training with me. And I can really understand that. And I guess I didn't miss that, because I had achieved, and I fell pregnant, and there was other things that was my structured day that I put in. And I think I quite liked that sort of laid back, like, whoa, I don't have to make many decisions here.
And then you said you kind of kept within the sport by working for the BBC and being the trackside interviewer. How was that gig? Did you enjoy doing that? Yeah,
I did 10 years of it. I was sort of punditing for a number of years, and then went to do the interviews. And I loved it. And, I was very lucky, to be the first person to interview Kelly after her, her double gold medal, and to be the first person to chat about things. But 10 years was long enough. I missed many I don't know, of my 3 children growing up and leaving them with my husband, and not just for a couple of days, but often 3 weeks at a time, when you go off to Edmonton for the Worlds and things. And of course, athletics with the BBC then was nearly every weekend. So we'd be cross country, we'd be indoors, we'd be Europa Cup, and we'd be flying all over the place. So I had 10 amazing years, and was quite happy after the 10 years to sort of, just be back at home with 3 young kids and support them, really. So yeah, things had changed.
Yeah, obviously you mentioned your family a lot, and John is obviously your husband, and he's obviously one of Britain's leading coaches in middle distance runners. Elliot Giles, Carl Langford, Ellie Baker, they're all really improving every year now, and you must be proud of what he's doing with the sport at the moment.
Yeah, very much. And I think one of the other reasons for the BBC is he needed to do what he was getting good at and what he wanted to do, and he'd supported me for so many years, I think, and done 10 years of being the dad at home, often bringing up the kids. And I think it was time to allow him to go off and do what he needed to do. So and he's made an amazing coach. He's so patient. He's so, he's brilliant with the guys, and he's learnt so much from, I guess, from our days, but also has gone out and sourced and researched and developed himself as a coach, and it's lovely to see him enjoying it and reaping the benefits, and for us to still be living the highs and the lows of an athlete.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's Olympic year. He must be, getting into the high stress levels at the moment, thinking, it's not too far away now, and he's got chances of, Elliot Giles in particular, medal chance now.
Exactly, and it never gets any easier because, it's always that time of year, isn't it, when everybody's posting fast times, and I just say to him, it was the same with us, but are they still going to be posting fast times in August? We can all run fast in May, but can you still run fast in August? And I have to keep reminding him and stuff like that, and to stick to your game plan and all these sort of things. So things never change, and I think the thing we've learned is that, we love our sport, and there's always highs and lows, and it's about putting it in the right place and enjoying the good times and, and not getting too stressed by the bad times, isn't it?
Yeah, and obviously your two boys are training with him as well. Are they still enjoying it?
Yeah, I mean, Finley, the eldest, he stopped last year. He's gone back into his first love, which is football, and he's doing personal training here and doing really well. And Lucas really, the middle one, he's sort of 20, nearly 21. He's really enjoying it now and doing quite a few of the BMC races. And then Marley, the little one, he's 16 now, but he's sort of getting into it. So, they've got amazing role models around them. And even if they don't go anywhere, they're learning so much about, hard work, discipline, and, just the importance of keeping yourself fit and exercise, really, at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, I saw on Instagram that Finley was helping Grandad out in the gym, I think.
Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah, his granddad's 88 and he comes and does a personal trainer. Yeah, he's in there now with a couple of clients, so he's doing really well. And he took me actually this morning. Do you know what? It's brilliant. Someone else telling you what to do, and you don't have to think up your own sessions. And I'm really enjoying it after all these years. You think I'd know how and what, but I just love somebody else telling me and setting my sessions. So there you go.
So when you look back on your whole career, do you think you did achieve everything you could have done? Do you think you could have run any quicker or anything like that?
No, and I think, some people find that really hard, but I've been very, very lucky, and I felt like I'd, got the most out of my career. I loved every moment of it. Yeah, and I still sometimes look back and think, how did I ever do that? Because I think watching John taking these guys on their journey and seeing how hard it is and how, very few people achieve. And I guess we didn't realise that at the time, and to actually be in that position looking back and just thinking, wow, we were just so lucky and amazing what we did. And I'm very fortunate, and I really appreciate that as well.
Do you have any regrets or anything during your career?
Not in a big way. No, I mean, I said maybe I should have done 800 at the end, but maybe it was just being greedy. I don't know. I don't have any regrets. I had, a great team and amazing, and things happen for a reason. The injuries, the races that you lose and things like that. That I should have won a Europeans and I lost. But they make you that person. That make me that person that stood on the line to win the Olympics and the Worlds, and they make me that person I am today. So I'm not one of those people. I never look back. I'm always looking forward, and I think that's my sport has taught me that, and the people that are around me have taught me that.
So speaking of looking forward, what does the future hold for Sally Gunnell?
Well, we've still got lots of plans. I always think, I've been retired a number of years now, and I'm still reinventing myself. So we do a lot around health and well-being, and I guess, with lockdown as well, we've got a number of sort of projects trying to get out there and look at, what we can put in place to help ourselves as we grow older and support ourselves and be the best version that we can be as we age as well. So I've got lots of new projects and just very excited, and just still enjoying. I still go for bike rides. It's just about getting that balance, really. Trying not to work too hard, being sometimes quite selective in what I do, having great friends and still challenging myself. I'm sort of talking about doing the the Cardiff half marathon at 54. That would be quite a challenge, wouldn't it? So let's see.
Yeah, see what happens. If you're obviously just going back over your 5 defining moments, which was first one moving to the 4 hurdles, second one Barcelona Olympic gold, third one was the 93 gold and world record, fourth one was the Olympics in 96 and being taken off the track, and the fifth and final one was your retirement decision. If you had to choose one of those moments as your defining moment, which one would that be?
I would probably say breaking the world records and winning the Worlds, just because of I wasn't in the best in mental shape and physical shape, and what I pulled out the bag and achieved and learnt about myself. So
Great. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the My Defining Moments podcast. I've really enjoyed it, and it's been 6-year-old me would have been thrilled to be interviewing you today.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you so much. It was great. Thank you.
Well, I think I was a good boy during that interview, given what Sally said to me when I was 6 years old. It was a real thrill for me to interview Sally today and speak to her about her whole career and how she's keeping busy in 2021. If you enjoyed that episode and you don't already subscribe, then please do so. I have another track and field athlete coming for you very soon, which you will not want to miss. Don't forget to share the podcast on social media, rate and review it on your podcast supplier. And I'm on social media at ChrisBrownSport if you want to get in touch. And I'll see you next time.